All right, good morning. I made a video, and I thank the people who gave me a little bit of criticism on it. I'm going to try to be better, although now I'm a little self-conscious, so it's a little bit harder. I made a little video about this recent reawakening of the wig controversy. And in light of that, there was different people have shared different points about this issue and about the question of wigs in general. Like I said in the previous video, it's a pretty serious thing to say that these wigs have a din of takrovis avodah zarah, that these wigs have a law of something that was offered to idols. First of all, the Metzias most likely isn't true. If you really study what's actually going on, it's very doichik. It's very, even though they're very choshev rabbanim who claim that it is, and also sometimes it depends on which temple it comes from and so forth. But how to define something as takrovis avodah zarah, for example, a Nazir would have to shave his head when he finished his Naziris, the Nazirite. When he finished his Nazirite vow, he had to shave his head. Now, we, lahavdil, we don't consider the hair to be a korban, to be a sacrifice to God. And so too, it almost seems in a similar fashion that this is what, and it's a different religion, and so I'm not saying that the religion is not avodah zarah. The question is this have a din of takrovis avodah zarah, which has a total isar hanoah, which cannot be nullified, or does it just happen to come from a base of avodah zarah? Now, it might be a midas chasidus to avoid, why would you want to put something on your head that comes from a base of avodah zarah? But that's not a halachic consideration. That's, an issue of, we could say, personal piety. Halachically speaking, it doesn't. Now, if this is actually offered as a takrovis, as a korban, as something that's offered as a sacrifice, then there's no way to permit it. But is it really so? That's one question. But of course, this reawakens the whole question of wigs in general, as often does in many camps. And one of my rebbeim, he pointed out that the two different sides, that say the extreme Zionist right and the extreme anti-Zionist right, in many ways have a lot in common. Not the least of which is that they both are anti-authoritarian. They both oppose the authority of the mainstream, the middle of the road, like the Rabbanut, which is, not trying to avoid these extremes, but in a certain sense, not really. It's hard to say exactly what they're doing there, why they are, and it's true. I tell you, even though, I've kind of had associations with both of those camps, both the extreme right anti-Zionism and the extreme right Zionism, religious Zionism, and I still have, even though I myself might have my own path that's a little different and unique and personal. What's going on over there? Why is this? So, however, that being said, I still have tremendous esteem for both of those camps, and identify to a certain extent in certain ways with each of those camps. Just me personally, not that that really matters for anything. And it's a fascinating thing how when it comes to the issue of the wigs, both of these camps agree wigs are a no-no. the question is, of course, the major difference between these two camps is really about shaving the head, and that's a big fight, obviously, with, there's two sides to it. So in any event, there was a video that someone had posted in light of this recent controversy over wigs, having nothing to do with this question of Tekrovus of Avodah Zarah, just simply, examining this question of wigs in general. And it came from what we would describe as the right wing of the religious Zionist camp in certain aspects of his identity, but someone who also has other aspects that make him unique. And that's Rabbi David Bar Chaim. Now, I don't agree necessarily with everything Rabbi David Bar Chaim says or holds, particularly his Zionist ideology, and in some ways I see him as being a little bit even more extreme in his Zionism than Rabbi Meir Kahana was, and it seems that he was essentially, that he considers himself a devotee to a certain extent of Rabbi Kahana, Zechrona Livrocha, Hashem Yimkom Dom, who I have to have a Korsa Tov, because my Zayd Alav Shalom was a shtikla chosid of his. So on that account, even though again I might disagree with certain aspects of his politics, which might not really be political, but are really his Torah opinions. And he certainly did not really consider them to be political. But nonetheless, I still can have respect. And also, it pains me very much when people paint people that they disagree with or have other issues with. They might not even really disagree with them, and they just paint them as racists. And like, what? Like, really? Like, I mean, you have Ty Cobb, that's a historical figure, who was a great baseball player. Everyone always said, oh, he was a racist, he was a nasty person, he was this, he was that. And the truth is that all of that stuff was just made up because someone was jealous of him, and jealous of what a successful athlete he was, and so forth. And on that account, they just made up these horrible, horrible lies about him, and they've been believed for decades with no basis and no proof. And now, like, we see same thing with Donald Trump. I mean, like him, hate him, what? To call him a racist, first of all, is watering down what the term racist means. And it's just plainly not true. And yet, it's just like, right away, that's everyone, like, people have no qualms about calling him a racist. And it's just totally and utterly ridiculous. So I don't know what to say, So I mean, if you just think about it logically, here's a man whose daughter converted to Orthodox Judaism, and he's very proud and supportive of her. And then Hillary Clinton, her mentor, Senator Byrd, was a leader of the KKK. So, like, who's the racist? Like, seriously, like if, I'm not really saying Hillary Clinton's a racist, but if one of the two is a racist, Hillary Clinton has much more racist credentials than, she's from Arkansas, she has much more the racist credentials than someone with essentially the New York values, which on one hand, yes, there are issues that we have with the New York values of why, of why we're uncomfortable with Donald Trump, why people, on the right, I was uncomfortable with it. But on the other hand, we have to admit the positive part of the New York values, which he also embraces, meaning, maybe our problem is that he's too liberal, he's too open-minded on certain things. But on the other hand, he's liberal and open-minded. He's not a racist. He's not a homophobic. He's not any of these things. Like seriously? Like, where is this even coming from? Like, it's just ridiculous. I mean, there are pictures of him, buddy with Al Sharpton, with Jesse Jackson, and I don't have a problem with that. But all of a sudden they're like, oh, he's a racist. He's not a racist. I didn't get off it already. All right. The same thing was true with Ty Cobb, and the same thing was true with Meir Kahane. Meir Kahane, he always said, I don't hate the Arabs. I love Jews. I wish the Arabs well, just elsewhere. That's what he would say. All right, you might have a problem with that too, and I can understand that. I wouldn't want someone to tell me I have to leave my house so someone else could live there and whatever. And, all right, there might be all kinds of arguments you can make, but in the end, you are where you are, and you've been there for a few generations. I can understand. And Meir Kahane said he understands the Arab side, and that's why there's a conflict. But he said that the Israeli left just has tremendous contempt for the Arab side and zero respect for them, and don't really show them the respect that they deserve. That's really what's about. Anyway, I've spoken how long? 12 minutes already? I haven't even gotten to the subject at hand. So we're talking about the sheitlach, about wigs. So there's a video where Rabbi David Bar Chaim, they're asking him, is it appropriate for a woman to cover her hair with a wig? Period. Nothing to do with Indian hair, nothing to do with Tekrovis Avodah Zarah, nothing with any of these things. Just a simple question. Wigs at all, is that an appropriate way for a woman to cover her hair? And his answer was no. He said, we see that certain rabbis will point to a Mishnah in Shabbos. It says a woman is allowed to wear Peah Nachrit, Peah Nachris, on Shabbos, in the Chotzer, but not in the Rosh Hashanah, the whole issue, the whole question about it. And so that's how we call wigs today, in Israel today, in the modern parlance. I don't know if in modern Hebrew that's what they call it. I'm not that familiar with modern Hebrew, but in the post-rabbinical era, certainly in the Divrei Achronim, this term Peah Nachris, which we see in the Mishnah as general, in the Mishnah in Shabbos, generally understood to be talking about wig. And Rabbi Bar Chaim, I feel very strongly and appropriately disproves this and this sentiment, and it's not his own chiddush. It's the words of the Vilna Gaon, and it's just common sense logic. What he's saying, that this term peah, we know. I remember I remember, I don't know, one day it was like Purim in Yerushalayim, and there was a beggar. He came up to me, and I gave him a few shekels, whatever, and he said, Mazotim HaPeya, Mazotim HaPeya. He's like, what's this about Peya? And I was like, Mazeh Peya. I didn't know what he's talking about. These Peyas, Peyot? Lo, Peya Nochrit. I was, Sheitel. Oh, I don't, because he was Sephardic, and Rav Ovadia Yosef opposed this, even though a lot of his devotees, their wives did go with the Sheitel, but do and so forth. But what's this? With the this guy, he was like, why do women wear wigs? What possible permission could there be for such a thing? And it was like above his head, and he was a Sephardic fellow. But to me, like, Peah means either payas, or it means like the corner of your field. It means like a corner, an edge. It doesn't mean a wig that covers the whole. That's a full hair, and so it's more like, what do you say? Peah Nochris in the Mishnah is really more like what we call today a spitzel. And that's what the Mishnah is talking about, not the full hair, but like either they call a front or a spitzel that they put in the front, that a little bit of hair is sticking out of the tichel. And that's what's, that's like a partial wig. And that's what the Mishnah is talking about, and that the Vilner Gaon says is permissible, but not a full wig, whereas I don't remember who he quoted, some other Achron who understood this Mishnah to be talking about a full wig, and that grew into the modern day parlance that we refer to a wig in, I think even in modern Hebrew as Peah, as Peah Nochri. Even though, again, it doesn't make sense. Why would you call a wig a corner or a side or an edge? Like, that doesn't even make sense, linguistically speaking. And even so, again, I don't remember who he was quoting. You can find the video, it's on YouTube, where he's saying that that this Rav most likely saw that women did start to wear wigs, as was the style in Europe at the time. Men also wore wigs in Europe, and on account of this, in certain parts of Europe for sure, and on account of this, he was trying to find some permission, because Hanach L'Hamit L'Yisrael, meaning, like, if Jews are doing something, for the most part, the rabbis have generally been trying to find some permission to say that whatever they've been doing is okay, especially, similar to, like, there's the tshuva from Harav Meshash in Morocco, of all places. You would think Morocco, it's a Muslim country, all the women there wear hijab, like what? And he was talking about how women were not covering their hair at all. And again, he wasn't saying that women shouldn't cover their hair, but he was giving, trying to find some heter for those who stopped covering their hair, and so how do I get over here? This should be so again. What's the what's this meaning with the so just like Rav Meshash found in his tshuvas some kind of a heter for women not to cover their hair at all, so too this I don't remember who it was, he basically found a heter for women to wear wigs. It's basically what we could say about that. Now, so basically, one thing that Rabbi Bar Chaim said was that the style in the time of the Mishnah was that, as many poskim point out very clearly, the halach is a woman is allowed to expose up to a tefach, which we could assume to be about 4 inches of her hair, and it's still considered that her hair is covered, because the main thing is that her head is covered, and that up to 4 inches, give or take, of hair, the hand's breadth, like kind of like how they measure horses by hands, so like that much hair, one hand, which is 4 inches, could be they measure the height of horses by hands. So that type of thing, that much hair could be exposed according to the plain halacha. And it seems that that's, in the time of the Mishnah, that was the common practice. And so therefore, he said, and if someone, for whatever reason, lost their hair or something, or they wanted to have a different hair color, and they wanted to have a little bit of hair sticking out of a different hair, peah nachris, someone else's hair, a foreign corner of hair, and stick that under their tichel, similar like what they call today a front or a spitzel. So the Mishnah permits that, and that's what Rabbi Bar Chaim was discussing. Now, then the question came up. He said, don't certain people say it's better to wear a wig than a tichel because the wig covers all your hair and the tichel does not cover all your hair? And that's specifically, he didn't mention by name, but that was, very famous, the opinion of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, even though I'm not sure his wife always covered her hair. There seems to be pictures where it seems pretty obvious it's not a wig. But I don't know for sure. I don't know. But that's how things were in America. A lot of Rabbanim, Rosh Yeshivas, Rebbes, wives didn't cover their hair. That's just how things were in America in those days. So it's not like it's such a strange thing. But like Lubavitcher Rebbe said, if you would wear a hat or a wig and you go visit Eisenhower, you might be ashamed and you take it off. That's what he really said. So then it's better to wear a wig, because then you're not going to take off a wig when you're going and seeing Eisenhower. That's what he said. Okay, I mean, but people turn that into now, like forgetting like generations upon generations of Masorah, where people were tichlach, and suddenly turned that into like, now that's like the halacha is that you have to wear a wig, and like it's more from to wear a wig, which is ridiculous. So then Rabbi Bar Chaim pointed out, he said, that's a chumrah from the Zohar, even though there's other things brought in the Gemara and other midrashim, that the Zohar says not even one hair should be showing, and the Chassam Sofer, he doesn't mention, but there are many Gedolei Yisrael who had this opinion, and that's the opinion of the Zohar. And again, so if you're a devotee of this, and he said this is inappropriate, he says, and it's ridiculous. This is Rabbi Bar Chaim holds. He said, because he said the only way to cover all your hair is either to wear a wig, which is, he says, is silly and unnecessary, or to shave your hair, which is disgusting. That's what he said. And it's not the halacha like that. The halacha is you are allowed to show part of your hair, and that was the style, he claims. And that's what Rabbi Bar Chaim said, and that's it. Now, I could have things to argue with him, and particularly, coming from a Hungarian background, the Chassam Sofer is a big deal to us, and the fact that he held that a woman should shave her hair, and the Samarav points out the fact that he quoted the Zohar Kodesh, which was not his way, meaning the Chassam Sofer very rarely quoted the Zohar, and he seemed to almost have some opposition to the Zohar. But the fact that for this particular issue he quoted the Zohar, this is not what Samarav says, but almost in a sense it seems to indicate that this is an authoritative Zohar, meaning most of the Zohar we could say is a medrash. We might even question, like Yaakov Emden questioned even parts of the authorship. I don't really want to get into that. I was always taught that it's like kfira, it's like heresy to question the authorship of the Zohar. Although now I know even some Kubalim question it, and it's really neither here nor there. We got to stop fighting over these things, But in any event, it seems that the Chassam Sofer at least was of the opinion that this was an authoritative Zohar, right? But obviously, I don't know what Rabbi Bar Chaim's opinions are of the authenticity of the Zohar, but I would assume that he certainly doesn't hold that we derive halacha from the Zohar. Again, others disagree. Samarav brings a very interesting word. He says, "Ein halacha Rabbi Shimon." We say all throughout the Gemara, but he said that's only before he went to the cave. And once he came out of the cave and he wrote the Zohar, then we do paskin like Rabbi Shimon. That's what Samarav says. Again, and he brings proofs to that and so forth. But again, that's essentially his opinion. But many people have pointed out that no, Ein halacha Rabbi Shimon, even from the Zohar, meaning if you have something that's Zoharic, maybe that's not the halacha. Nonetheless, Hasidim and Kabbalistically inclined Sephardim certainly do take the Zohar very seriously and certainly do accept as authoritative and authentic. And I personally, even if it's an issue of suspension of disbelief to a certain extent, which I don't really think it is, I would say that the Zohar is rooted in Tanaic teachings, rooted in the teachings of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, even if possibly it's very possible that certain things were added to it later. Most likely that's the case, but the majority of it, the roots of it, are Torah's Rabbi Shimon, Torah's Rashbi. That's my personal approach, and that's, I do have, questions. Sometimes people, they seem to want to be, for some reason, I don't know why, a chassid of mine, and they'll ask me different things, and I generally, with most of these things, I say as my Rebbeim did, it really doesn't matter. However, when it comes to this, if you want to identify as Hasidish, and you wear a Streimel and a Bekasha and all these things, we kind of basically have to accept the Zohar. It comes with the territory. It's one of those things, even though we kind of know it's not necessarily so, but once you take on all these things, it just, to be part, it's a cultural thing. Even and I know some people might feel it's intellectually dishonest or so forth, but it's an aspect of culture, just like the Streimel is an aspect of culture. So too, we could say that the things like not eating gebrocks on Pesach and only eating handmade matzah, things like that, and for sure not eating kidneys and so forth. They just come with the territory. If you're going to dress like this, and I'm not telling you to dress like that. If someone asked me, should I wear a shtreimel, I would say probably not, unless you're, either you grew up like that, or you particularly want to be a rabbi, and you feel that uniform is a rabbinical uniform. Although just the same, a Hamburg and a frock are also a good rabbinical uniform, or just a regular, suit and tie and a fedora, also a fine rabbinical uniform. Or, I also am particularly partial to the canonical garb, like many Western European rabbis wear. I think that's quite appealing to me, to wear, robes and maybe different types of hats and things. And it's funny because, I heard, they made a new chief rabbi in Rome, and he really didn't like the robes that he had to wear, but it's part of the job description, But me, I like that stuff. I don't know. That's just me personally. And again, that might not be you. You could be a rabbi with a t-shirt and jeans and be a great rabbi too. It's not the clothes, not the beard and payas. It's not any of that stuff that makes you a good rabbi. For me, it's even a certain aspect, I would say, personally, psychologically, of insecurity that, this is how, I kind of, prove myself as a rabbi, because, maybe I'm not such a Talmud Chacham and I'm not so pious, but at least, I dress like a rabbi, It's my uniform. Everybody has to have their own approach, But this being said, there was a comment there to this, someone posted this video of Rabbi Bar Chaim, and then there was a comment, and he said, and someone asked him in the video at the end, he said, is it better to wear a wig or not cover your hair at all? And he's like, his opinion is that it's perhaps better not to cover your hair at all than to wear a wig. So so then somebody put some comment, it's whoever this guy is, he's not as big as the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he's not as big as Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, this dummy putting Lubavitcher Rebbe together with a Tana, with any Tana, putting any Achron with any Tana. I don't care if it's Moshe Feinstein or Satmar Rav, or Baron Kotler, or Rabbi Yosef, or the Ben Ish Chai, or the Chassam Sofer, even the Vilner Gaon. The Vilner Gaon, who said, Ulai Karashba. And this dummy is putting Lubavitcher Rebbe, of all people, together with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Are you a dummy? Do you even know anything about Judaism? You show how ignorant you are to put these two people together, or you just show that you're part of a cult that thinks, for some reason, I know other people are going to disagree with me. I know one of my Rebbeim, he's not a Lubavitcher, but his feelings about Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, he felt that, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov is maybe someone like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. I don't know. I don't know if he said that much, but he was talking about this recently, but to me, I find that extremely distasteful. You put Lubavitcher Rebbe together with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, I don't know. Whatever. Same thing. I know. I remember when I was a kid, I read something, someone wrote on the internet, in the early days of the internet, and someone wrote something like, Meir Kahana was as great as the Rambam and the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and what the heck are you talking about? How do you put the Rambam together with the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and how do you put Meir Kahana together with the Rambam? And alright, I could see Meir Kahana and the Lubavitcher Rebbe, they were contemporaries. The Lubavitcher Rebbe was a little older, but those two I could put them in the same category, but there's this like these cult of personalities also. It's just like, it's so silly. It's like, it's really ridiculous. Like, I don't know. But anyway, that's the stupidest argument you can make. Is that this guy, this Rabbi Bar Chaim, he's not the Lubavitcher Rebbe, so who is he to disagree with him? If you're not a Lubavitcher Chassid, you don't need to listen to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Lubavitcher Rebbe is not saying Torah for all Klal Yisrael. He's saying for his Chassidim. Even if he thinks he's the Rebbe of all Klal Yisrael, there's some Rebbe in Israel now. There's someone else with the same name, the same last name too, and they're not related at all. And he's a big Talmid Chacham here, the one that's here. He gives Hechsherim and Mishkols. So in Eretz Yisrael, I don't know which city he lives in, there's a Mishkoltzer Rebbe. I find him good man, I have nothing against him. But like I saw this videos, it's like a Simchas Beis Sheva, he has like fireworks and like this fancy. I would do that stuff too, and I could see, especially in Israel, why that kind of stuff would be like popular and get people's attention and stuff. It's like, Harabi mi Mishkol Tzua Admor Lekulam. Like the Mishkol Rebbe is everybody's Rebbe. Now, on one hand, it's nice to say, you could translate that he's a Rebbe who's for everyone. He loves everybody. That's a nice thing. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe also loved everybody. Meir Kahana also loved everybody. Satmarav also loved everybody. Satmarav even loved the people who hated him. He went out of his way to show tremendous Ahavas Yisrael to people who consider themselves his enemies. And he went out of his way to show tremendous Ahavas Yisrael to people who he had a genuine, legitimate machlokes with them, to show that it was not a personal fight. This was something Satmarav was engaged in tremendously. Part of the whole reason why we have a Munkacher Rebbe today, and Diniver, and all his brother, and is because the Satmarav made sure that the Munkacher and the Diniver went to learn in Tells and helped them out and gave them money and gave them a lot of cover, specifically because in Europe he had certain machlokes with his Zayda, with the Munkacher Rav, with the Minchas Elazar, but he still respected him, and he knew he was the Gadol Hador. And even though he had some machlokes with him, so he went out of his way to be mekarev his einiklach, and in a way that was behalten sich. That's why he specifically sent him to Tells, to behalt sich azoi, to hide that he was involved with it, with helping them, in order that no one should think that it had something to do with the machlokes, with this and that. There were all kinds of cheshbonos that he had, all kinds of calculations he had to make sure that he's showing respect to the memory and the kavod of the Minchas Elazar of the Heilige Munkacher Rav, and that's why we have today Munkacher Rebbe, and same thing told us Aaron, in Satmar there was episode machlokes between Barla and Satmarav. It wasn't such a friendly relationship, and now they're told us Aaron and Satmar are the biggest Yedidim, and why? Because Satmarav is given übergegeben zu machen Shulam mit jeder eine. That was his whole, and people who want to claim he is a Bal Machlokes is just ignorance and foolishness and So anyway, what do I have to say about this? So, but what I'm saying here is that, like, yeah, it's good to love everybody, to be makar everybody, but you can't impose yourself on everybody. The thing is, this Rabbi Bar Chaim kind of does that well. The nafka mina is the difference between Rabbi Bar Chaim and just about all these other people. And I disagree with Rabbi Bar Chaim on many things, but who am I to disagree with him, right? But the point is first of all, he's bringing sources, and everything he's saying is source-based, and he is, and what he's saying is the Ikar Hadin, meaning when he says something, he's saying this is what's historically from Chazal. There's certain authenticity in this. Now, on the other hand, there's a chashivas in having a Masorah and this and that, but each community has a Masorah. And so you cannot say that these Masoros, these traditions, are binding on all of Klal Yisrael. You can say you come from a community that has an established Masorah and so forth. That's a fine thing. That's not the issue what I'm having here. And maybe he's not. Maybe he's just, grabbing things out of Chazal. But the thing is when you got to learn that a lot of these Masorahs have no makor. They're brand new. They're not real authentic Masorahs. Like the story of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Meaning in Europe, did they wear sheitlach? No, of course not. They wore babushkas. They didn't even wear it like tichlach like we wear now. They wore babushkas that go over the whole head like a hijab. And that's how the women dressed. That's how an Erlicha woman dressed. It wasn't a sheitel. But he was talking about, all right, in the 1950s in America, he recognized there was it's not the 1950s anymore. The Sikhs aren't afraid to wear their turbans, and the Muslims are not afraid to wear the hijab. We don't have to be afraid to fear Yiddish. We don't have to hide our Yiddishkeit. In a certain sense, it's like wearing a sheitel. That's like putting on a baseball cap. Again, I understand that it's appropriate for certain people to wear a baseball cap, but nobody pretends. And sometimes I wear a baseball cap. I don't have a problem with. And my Zayda Oliver Shalom is given an Erlich Yid. He wore a baseball cap, but they asked for Victor Miller, is it ever appropriate to wear a baseball cap? He said, no. Why do you want to copy dummies who run around chasing a ball? Like, why would you want to dress like that? Most people now that they put on a baseball cap are not even thinking about baseball. It's just a style, But but even with all of that to be said, there's plenty what to discuss. All of these different sides. But again, Rabbi Victor Miller, if you're a Talmud of Rabbi Victor Miller, you're a Chassid of Rabbi Victor Miller, and I know plenty of his Chassidim, they also will once in a while put a baseball cap. Everybody, you don't have to necessarily follow everything blindly that your Rav or your Rebbe says. It depends on the situation. It depends on why he said it. The situation. Even I have a cousin who's a Heiser Lubavitcher, a Meshechist, and he's more normal than most Lubavitchers that I know who are not Meshechist. What I mean by that is I remember he gave me a book of kind of like Shilas and Shuvas, Lubavitcher Rebbe. People asked Lubavitcher Rebbe questions, and the answers he gave was in English. He gave me this book when I was like first becoming frum, and like all kinds of silly little things, but the kinds of questions I get to, and it's not, I can see the appropriateness of of this book. Things like, what do you do if you're scared of thunder and lightning? And it said, well, if you say the bracha, you won't be scared. Or, should I become a boxer? And like the Lubavitcher was like, no, that bothers me so much. You could even ask such a question, like, why wouldn't you want to do that? And now, like, there's like a boxer who's like a Lubavitcher chassid, like a Lubavitcher Rebbe was, and so like people don't even know what Lubavitcher, like people, they call themselves Lubavitcher chassidim, and they hear one or two things that they hear from their mashpia, and they don't even, and from there on they're totally ignorant. They don't know the history. They don't know Metzias. They don't know all kinds of things. Also, there's historical revisionism. Whereas this cousin of mine, when he gave me this book, why am I telling you this? He said, or maybe it was actually the cousin was that my actual cousin was his wife. She passed away. She said, just because the Rebbe said this is what they. I don't remember who said this, because I was like 13, 14 years old when I got this book, and despite any rumors to the contrary, I was not carved by Lubavitch. I don't know where people get that idea. I'd never been Lubavitcher chassid. I never was carved by Lubavitch. I barely ever even stepped foot into a Chabad house in my early days. Maybe once or twice. I had people who tried to schlep me to Lubavitch, and for various reasons, Baruch Hashem, I didn't go. And I remember once, I remember going to a Chabad house because one of the people who davened in the shul was a Lubavitcher, and he was trying to make me a Lubavitcher. I didn't even realize it at the time, but I saw that he was like kind of trying to make me a Lubavitcher. He had a brother who was probably the one who made him a Lubavitcher, and the brother was making a bris at the Chabad house. Brother with a long beard and a kapota and the hat and everything, and they called him up to say the brachas, and he could barely read Hebrew. And I don't know if I was in yeshiva yet or I was just starting, and I think I could have read the brachas better than this guy with the long beard and the kapata and everything, and he was struggling through the Hebrew. And then meanwhile, but that wasn't the least of it. There in the Chabad house, and there was a minyan there, and I overheard something I couldn't believe. I didn't realize at the time how horrible it was what I was hearing. How little there is of priorities. There was a fellow there. He was bragging, clean-shaven American guy. This is like 20 years ago. Wow, that's 20 years ago. This is almost 20 years ago, whatever it was. Oh my, I can't believe how long ago these things were. So, it wasn't like it is today. Now, Lubavitch is, very popular now. These Chabad houses are very popular. So anyway, at the time it was this, I'm sure, whatever it was then, I'm sure this is much more common now. And a guy, clean-shaven guy, American guy, regular guy, he was putting on Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin, and he was kind of bragging. He's like, yeah, I drive to shul on Shabbos, so I put on Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin. What? Are you serious? I mean, I put on Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin. I don't have a problem with putting on Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin, but where's your priorities? If you drive to Shul on Shabbos, you put on Rabbeinu. I mean, this is something I heard with my own ears. I'm not saying a rumor I heard from someone else. This is what I saw. But ain't I easy? But anyway, my cousin, who's a kind of a eccentric fellow, but we love him. Is that where we're supposed? Oh, that's where we're supposed to go. Alright. I think there's another way to get where I'm going. I should really put on the GPS. So my cousin, he said, I think this way though, don't pay a toll. So he said, when the Rebbe said this, he was saying this for the person who asked the question. It's not necessarily for you. And halavai, the Lubavitcher Chassidim would know that, would understand that. That no, not everything Lubavitcher Rebbe said is for every Jew in the world, or even for every Lubavitcher Chassid. Like, just be normal, just think for yourselves a little bit. Like, there's one fellow online, he said he learned both in Satmar and in Lubavitch. I don't know what his background is. He's a Rav in a shul, wears a Shtreimel Shabbos. And he said, if you go to Satmar, you have to totally give up any independent thought. He's always saying things against Satmar and like pro-Lubavitch things. And I'm like, seriously? There's much less independent thought in Lubavitch, much more independent. You compare Lubavitch and Satmar, there's much more independent thought than in Lubavitch. Much, much more. And in Lubavitch, it's like, if you got to sing exactly, it's the same thing in Skver, and all the Russian Hasidim are like this. Karl and Stalin to a certain extent, or the Karl and Stalin people are a little bit more open-minded, just because the Rebbe is more open-minded, and like he's a very normal person. But then like they also they become cultish in that. I mean, it's the same thing with Lubavitch. It's like Lubavitch, they like try to show off how modern they are when really they're very, very close-minded. So, which is fine. I don't care. It's just not for me. If that's what works for you, gesundheit hate. I love it. It's beautiful. I'm not saying you shouldn't be, but I'm just saying you can't impose this on everybody. That's my point. If anyone has more of a prerogative to be imposing on other people, it's Rabbi Bar Chaim, because what he's saying is the Ikar Adin. That's just the baseline halacha. And so he definitely has much more authority, because it's not his personal authority. That's my point. That's the whole point I'm making in this video. It's not about the personalities of David Bar Chaim or Rabbi Schneerson or the Rambam or Shimon Yochai or the Ben Ish Chai or Meir Kahana or Satmar Rav or anybody. The point is Torah. This is what you got to wake up. It's like a few years ago, this beautiful, beautiful interview with Rabbi Yitzchak Leibovich, with the Woodridger Rebbe, Woodridger Ruv, Woodridger Shiva, whatever you want to call him. I don't know. Whatever he wants to call himself. He kind of changes his mind every now and then. Rabbi Yitzchak Leibovich, he had this incredible interview. I really have to translate this interview. It's so important, the things he says. Someone asks him, what would Satmar Rav say about today's technology? And his answer is, the Satmar Rav would say, who cares what the Satmar Rav has to say? What does the Torah have to say? Do you hear what I'm saying? Do you understand? Wow. I think this exit takes me to where I have to go. Let's try it. Let's see if I can find my way without my group isn't until 2 o'clock, so I can kind of. So, and that's what really we gotta learn. Who cares what any human being has to say, what any rabbi has to say? What does the Torah say? Now, by Torah, I do, of course, yes. Is this where I'm turning here? Maybe not. This might be a mistake. Maybe not. I'm not sure. We'll figure it out. Meaning, yeah, Chazal, but the Chazal have the authority of whatever they established by the Sanhedrin. This is not the right way. gotta turn around. Let this person pass me, and then I'm gonna turn around. Meaning, these cults of meaning, because Rabbi Bar Chaim is not saying, I'm Rabbi Bar Chaim and you gotta listen to me. Because I'm Rabbi Bar Chaim, I'm this great rabbi and you gotta listen to me. If that's what he's saying, that's not the person you gotta listen to. But if he's saying, this is my argument of how I understand Chazal, based on, this is something the Vilner Gaon understood, and yes, I'm presenting both sides of the argument, and I'm describing why I believe that this side of the argument is correct, and this side of the argument is incorrect, and this is how I'm approaching things. Which is really basically how Satmarov... Oh, I'm supposed to go that way. Now I remember. That's how Satmarov did everything. Meaning, Satmarov never said, even though Chassam Sofer sometimes did say, I'm Das Torah, this and that. Satmarov never said that. He always, if you look through all of his Sfarim, he's always like, bringing arguments and bringing Svaras. Alright, and maybe you can disagree, maybe you can, once in a while he wouldn't. But for the most part, he would. Sometimes he would explain why other people didn't do that or whatever. But I don't know. This was not worth that whatever $1.25 toll. I should have just paid the toll and not gone this way, right? But I'm pretty sure I know where I am. Because I went this way Tuesday. Is that right? This looks familiar. We'll figure it out. This kind of looks familiar. So anyway, what are we talking about here? That's my point here. Now, yes, if you're a Lubavitcher Chassid and you live in a community or you present yourself as a Lubavitcher Chassid, of course you do things the way Lubavitcher Chassidim do things. I'm not telling you not to. I'm just saying you can't go and say, and if you're a Chassid of this Rabbi Bar Chaim, so you follow what he does, what he says. Right, essentially, right? I mean, and once in a while, it's healthy to not do everything that your Rebbe says. If you know the halacha, I mean, you have to be a Talmid Chacham. You can't just do whatever you want. But there is a certain healthiness, I guess, to say, to think twice and come to your own conclusions. Like I know one of my Rebbeim who I speak about, don't always mention by name because he's a very private person. Yeah, this looks like the right way. So I asked him, he's a student of, he has made statements publicly that his opinion is that a certain Rav, who's kind of controversial, is the greatest posek alive today. This posek tends to be liberal on a lot of things, and on one particular issue has become somewhat controversial. Issues with Safras and certain kulas and Safras. So and this Rav happens to be a Sofer and a epis of Poisek in Safras, a big expert in Safras, probably one of the biggest experts in Safras today. And And I asked this rabbi, what do you feel about your Rebbe? His, essentially, your posek, his views on this controversial view on Safras and certain kula that he has. And he says, I don't have what to comment on it. Don't necessarily accept it blindly just because he's my Rebbe, and I don't necessarily say it's no good because it seems it probably is good. I'm not going to comment on it, and I think he's being honest there because he's an honest person. And that's very healthy, and that's very normal. Don't just be a brainwashed cultist. Don't just do whatever your Rebbe says just because he says so. Yes, we have a Torah, and yes, we have Chazal, and that we do have to follow. And even with certain things there, not every interpretation that we have now of Chazal is necessarily the Ikar Adin. So, and it's something I had to learn the hard way in my life, I think. Because I was very much I think a lot of Bali Tshuva and Gerim go through this, and I think a major reason for this is Lubavitch. Like, certain people decide, I don't want to be a Lubavitcher, but I want to follow my Rebbe the way a Lubavitcher follows the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And I don't know if that's necessarily healthy, especially when your Rebbe doesn't want to be followed like Lubavitcher Rebbe. I don't think Lubavitcher Rebbe wanted necessarily. Maybe yes, maybe no. I have no idea. I didn't know him. I never met him. But I heard I was at a bar mitzvah. Lubavitcher bar mitzvah was in our shul, and there was one Eid there. He spoke about how on his bar mitzvah they had yichidus with Lubavitcher Rebbe, and the Rebbe asked Mus Lerntman, and he told him he's learning a particular mimer. He said he didn't want to do the mimer everybody else is doing. He wants to do a different mimer, and then he asked the Lubavitcher Rebbe asked, and the Rebbe laughed, and then this Bocher, he's now an older person, a Zayda, he said, so the Bocher, the Bar Mitzvah Bocher, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe asked him, du haltst beim Deis? You're holding by what's in the mimer? He said, no. He said, so the Lubavitcher Rebbe told him, you don't have to wait till you're grown up and married to hold by this. You can already right now. And that's a nice thing. It's a beautiful idea, Like, you don't have to wait. Giving people chizik. That's a beautiful, nice thing. That's very nice. Whatever. This is just my point. And I think this is, the Lubavitcher Rebbe would even have nachas from this. Don't just be a blind zombie. Learn to think for yourself. Learn to learn Torah to become a Talmid Chacham. And learn that I'll tell you something. This was Eschatoy Ani Masker Hayoim. I remember I was very upset that in the yeshiva where I learned, now everything that this church has a big banner up welcoming our new pastor and her name and everything. I didn't get that one in any of my shuls. Maybe I got my name on the sign, or it wasn't like a banner like that, welcoming our new rabbi. I don't know. I gotta step up my game. I don't know. So maybe it's because I'm not I'm not trying to make people culted, and that's why I don't have the. So and these Bachrim were right. I think they were Lubavitcher Bachrim, but they were open-minded enough to be normal. They weren't brainwashed like a lot of these people are. But I was very upset that in the vending machines, even though all the food that was served in the cafeteria was all the milchiks were Chalav Yisrael, in the vending machines there was things that OUD, and I was upset about it. And I was like, what's this like? And you're Lubavitcher Chassidim, you of all people shouldn't, be doing this. So what do you And they said, what, you can't say that they're eating treif just because they're eating OUD. And it took me a while to wake up to that truth, but it's true. It's not treif to eat OUD. It's not, I mean, I didn't go to yeshiva in Borough Park. I went to yeshiva in Queens, whatever. It's a lesson I gotta learn, and it's a lesson, and and a lot of these mistakes I've made over time. So, oh my goodness, I've been going on and on for an hour already. How can anyone listen to me? All right, God bless you. Please like, share, and subscribe. And don't be brainwashed. Don't be a zombie. Don't be a cult. Don't be culted. Just learn Torah. Follow Torah. Follow your own rebbeim where it's shaykh. And for the most part, if your Rav is smart enough, he's gonna give you a normal answer. You know what I'm saying? Again, back to the Sheiklach. I said this in another video. It's worth repeating if anybody's listening this far, which I doubt. And if you are, kudos to you. And now I really gotta stop because I gotta put on the GPS and figure out. The story goes like this: that the Satmarov, and again I said this in another video, so if you heard it already, I'm sorry. Satmarov, when he was Rav in Satmar, he would go to the Hasidic shul and tell them what a big sin it was to wear a sheitel. And when he went to the Ashkenaz shul, he would say what a big mitzvah it was to wear sheitel. What does that mean? And it's very simple. Because the Hasidim, their mamas and their babas wore tichlach, and now they're becoming more modern, putting on sheitel. So it was a yerida for them. And the Ashkenazim, a lot of the women were going dagan nahor, they were wearing their own hair. They certainly weren't cutting their hair. They weren't, they weren't covering it all and nothing. And so he said, what a big mitzvah is to wear sheitel, because he understood everyone. B'asher hu sham. And if you have a Rav, a Rebbe, a Mar Hara, who really knows you and loves you and cares about you, they're going to get to know enough about your life that when you ask them a question, they're going to be honest enough with you to say, this is the answer for you, or I can't give you an answer. Maybe ask this person, because I can't invest the time to get to know you that well. And that's honesty, and that's real. What do you gain, having a Rebbe who has 100,000 Hasidim? It's nice to go to a Rebbe like that and get a bracha or something and maybe get advice here and there. But to say that that's your personal Rebbe, kind of missing out on something. It's kind of nice to have more than one Rebbe. It's kind of important, I think, to have a different Rebbe for different things, different Rav for different things. This is my Rebbe, this is my Posek, this is my Mashpia, and they're different people, not to just have one person. And to learn from everybody, Right? Alright. Well, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. Again, I'm not putting down Lubavitch. I'm trying to lift up Lubavitch. I'm trying to bring, if anything, bring Lubavitch into the mainstream. Bring Lubavitchers into the main, because there are a lot of fine, good, normal Lubavitcher Hasidim who are mainstream people, who are not Shagoyim, who are not culted. But it seems that a lot of the mashpiyim and a lot are like trying to push people into the cult mentality, and then certainly the new Bali Tshuva who get excited and have that like missionary zeal, want to make, because they found something they really like and they want to share it with everyone. I understand that it's a beautiful thing, but I don't know. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, and comment, and but like, just in a nutshell, if you made it this far, what is the point of this video? I'm not saying which side to take. I'm just saying, recognize that the Jewish world, the Orthodox Jewish world, even the Hasidic world, the Haredi world for sure, are not monolithic places. There are different opinions, different approaches, and everybody has their thing, and as long as you're following halacha, as long as you're following Shulchan Aruch, as long as you're following the Piskei Halacha of Chazal, because there's plenty of stuff that's in Shulchan Aruch that's minhag. Not even everything in Shulchan Aruch you really have to follow. You don't really have to wear a garden to daven, even though Shulchan Aruch says so. I mean, I do, and mostly because Shulchan Aruch says so. It doesn't mean you have to. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. I really appreciate it. And let's be in touch, and put in the comments what other things you might want to talk about, other videos you might want me to make. All right. I've talked enough already. Let me turn this thing off. All right. God bless people.